Section 12 of A Visit to the Holy Land. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Chapter 6 of A Visit to the Holy Land, Egypt and Italy, Part 2. By Ida L. Pfeiffer. Consul D fulfills the duties of two consulates, the Austrian and the French. From both these offices he derives no benefit but the honor. By some people this honor would be highly valued, but many would rate it nothing at all. This family, however, seems to have a great idea of honor, for the consul's office is hereditary, and I found the son of the present dignitary already looking forward to filling his place. In the evening I was present at a real Oriental entertainment in the house of this friendly family. Mats, carpets, and pillows were spread out on the terrace of this house, and a very low table placed in the centre. Round this the family sat, or rather reclined, cross-legged. I was accommodated with a chair somewhat higher than the table. Beside my plate and that of the consul were laid a knife and fork, that appeared to have been hunted out from some lumber chest. The rest ate with a species of natural knife and fork, namely the fingers. The dishes were not at all to my taste. I had still too much of the European about me, and too little appetite to be able to endure what these good people seemed to consider immense delicacies. The first dish appeared in the form of a delicate pilau, composed of mutton, cucumbers, and a quantity of spice, which rendered it more unpalatable to me than common pilau. Then followed sliced cucumbers sprinkled with salt, but as the chief ingredients, vinegar and oil, were entirely wanting, I was obliged to force down the cucumber as best I could. Next came rice milk, so strongly flavored with attar of roses that the smell alone was more than enough for me. And now at length the last course was put on the table: stale cheese made of ewe's milk, little unpeeled gherkins, which my entertainers coolly discussed, rind and all, and burnt hazelnuts. The bread, which is flat like pancakes, is not baked in ovens, but laid on metal plates or hot stones, and turned when one side is sufficiently done. It tastes better than I should have expected. Our conversation during dinner was most interesting. Some of the family spoke a little Italian, but this was pronounced with such a strong Greek accent that I was obliged to guess at the greater portion of what was said. No doubt they had to do the same with me. The worthy consul, indeed, affirmed that he knew French very well, but for this evening at least his memory seemed to have given him the slip. Much was spoken and little understood. The same thing is often said to be the case in learned societies, so it was not of much consequence. There are many different kinds of cucumber in Syria, where they are a favorite dish with rich and poor. I found numerous varieties, but none that I found superior to our German one. Another favorite fruit is the watermelon, here called bastek. These I also found neither large in size nor better flavored than the melons I had eaten in southern Hungary. The consul's house seems sufficiently large, but the architectural arrangement is so irregular that the extended area contains but few rooms and very little comfort. The apartments are lofty and large, extremely ill furnished, and not kept in the best possible order. I slept in the apartment of the married daughter, but had it not been for the beds standing round, I should rather have looked upon it as an old store closet than a lady's sleeping room. May 28th. At 5 o'clock in the morning Mr. Bartlett's servant came to fetch me away, as we were at once to continue our journey. I betook myself to the house of the English consul, where I found neither a horse nor anything else prepared for our departure. It is necessary to look calmly upon these irregularities here in the East, where it is esteemed a fortunate occurrence if the horses and mukers, as the drivers of horses and donkeys are called, are only a few hours behind their time. Thus our horses made their appearance at 5:30 instead of at 4, the hour for which they had been ordered. Our baggage was securely fixed, for we left the greater portion of our effects at Joppa, and took with us only what was indispensably necessary. As the clock struck 6 we rode out of the gate of Joppa, and immediately afterwards reached a large well with a marble basin. Near places of this description a great number of people are always congregated, and more women and girls are seen than appear elsewhere. The dress of females belonging to the lower orders consists of a long blue garment fastened round the throat, and reaching below the ankle. They completely cover the head and face, frequently without even leaving openings for the eyes. Some females, on the other hand, go abroad with their faces totally uncovered. These are, however, exceptional cases. The women carry their water pitchers on their head or shoulder, as their ancestors have done for thousands of years, in the manner we find represented in the oldest pictures. But unfortunately I could discover neither grace in their gait, the dignity in their movements, nor the physical beauty in their appearance that I had been led to expect. On the contrary, I found squalor and poverty more prevalent than I had thought possible. We rode on amid the gardens, every moment meeting a little caravan of camels. Immediately beyond the gardens we descry the fruitful valley of Sharon, extending more than 8 miles in length, and to a still greater distance in breadth. Here and there we find villages built on hills, and the whole presents the appearance of an extremely fertile and well-populated region. In all directions we saw large herds of sheep and goats, the latter generally of a black or brown color, with long, pendant ears. The foreground of the picture is formed by the Judean mountains, a range apparently composed of a number of barren rocks. A ride of 2 hours through this plain, which is less sandy than the immediate neighborhood of Joppa, brought us to a mosque, where we made halt for a quarter of an hour and ate our breakfast, consisting of some hard-boiled eggs, a piece of bread, and a draught of lukewarm water from the cistern. Our poor beasts fared even worse than ourselves. They received nothing but water. On leaving this place to resume our journey across the plain, we not only suffered dreadfully from the heat, which had reached 30 degrees Reaumur, but were further persecuted by a species of minute gnats, which hovered round us in large swarms, crept into our noses and ears, and annoyed us in such a manner that it required the utmost of our patience and determination to prevent us from turning back at once. Fortunately, we only met with these tormentors in those parts where the corn had been cut and was still in the fields. They are not much larger than a pin's head, and look more like flies than gnats. They are always met with in great swarms, and sting so sharply that they frequently raise large boils. The vegetation was at this season already in so forward a state that we frequently passed stubble fields, and found that the wheat in several cases had already been gathered up. Throughout the whole of Syria, and in that part of Egypt whither my journey afterwards led me, I never once saw corn or vegetables, wood or stores, carried in wagons. They were invariably borne by horses or asses. In Syria I could understand the reason of this proceeding. With the exception, perhaps, of the 8 or 10 miles across the valley of Sharon, the road is too stony and uneven to admit the passage of the lightest and smallest carts. In Egypt, however, this is not the case, and yet wagons have not been introduced. A most comical effect was produced when we met long processions of small donkeys, so completely laden with corn that neither their heads nor their feet remained visible. The sheaves seemed to be moving spontaneously, or to be propelled by the power of steam. Frequently, after a train of this kind has passed, lofty grey heads appear, surrounded by a load piled up to so great a height that one would suppose large corn wagons were approaching rather than the ship of the desert, the camel. The traveller's attention is continually attracted to some novel and curious object totally dissimilar to anything he has seen at home. Towards 10 o'clock we arrived at Ramla, a place situate on a little hill, and discernible from a great distance. Before reaching the town we had to pass through an olive wood. Leaving our horses beneath a shady tree, we entered the coppice on the right. A walk of about a quarter of a mile brought us to the Tower of the 40 Martyrs, which was converted into a church during the time of the Knights Templars, and now serves as a dwelling place for dervishes. It is a complete ruin, and I could scarcely believe that it was still habitable. We made no stay at Ramda, a place only remarkable for a convent built, it is said, on the site of Joseph of Arimathea's house. The Syrian convents are built more like fortresses than like peaceful dwellings. They are usually surrounded by strong and lofty walls, furnished with loopholes for cannon. The great gate is kept continually closed, and barred and bolted from within for greater security. A little postern is open to admit visitors, but even this is only done in time